Donald Ayer served as Deputy Attorney General under President George H.W. Bush. He is now calling for the Justice Department to prosecute Trump. He joins me now. If Donald Trump did, in fact, try to tamper with a witness in the committee's investigation, how do you read that choice? Do you read it as stupidity, as a flagrant attempt to intimidate, a complete disregard for the rule of law, or all of the above?
I think you really have to know more about the facts in order to give an opinion like that, and I think Chairman Thompson was quite prudent to say that he was leaving it to the FBI. There are a lot of loose ends. They're not just loose ends. There are a lot of facts continuing to be developed, and I don't know how long it will go on, but I think it may go on a bit longer. And the article that we wrote, that you referred to, really doesn't deal with those loose ends. It deals with what is sort of out there now very clear from the hearings. And that's sort of the donut rather than the hole in the donut. And I think what we talked about, and I'd be happy to say more, is the enormous amount of evidence which the committee hearings have brought to light, showing that Donald Trump was the driving force behind this entire effort to overturn the election. January 6th was part of it for sure, but it wasn't all of it. There was all sorts of other things, influencing people in the states on their vote counts, influencing the Justice Department, efforts to influence Mike Pence. All of it is central to this plan. And our article discusses the ways the hearing shows Donald Trump is at the heart of all of it.
And I do want to hear about that, but one question that flows out of that is why you believe that the benefits to that outweigh the risks.
Well, I think it really goes to the fact that the evidence we now have across the board of his conduct show his own personal involvement time and again in very personal ways in interfering in a way that was intended to overturn the election. This could have been a set of facts where all sorts of different people ran around and did things, and you could argue about whether Donald Trump really knew about it, to what extent he was involved in it, to what extent he's the cause of it. Well, those aren't the facts. The real facts are Donald Trump was driving the entire program. That's why it's critical that he be held to account. We can't have a system where a president can willfully, deliberately, and with no ambiguity act to overturn a legitimate election and nobody does anything about it. If we have that system, our system won't work. So something has got to be done.
When you talk about what we know versus the loose ends, of those loose ends, which do you think would most help in making a complete case?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think one big picture question, which I think we're going to hear more about next week, and we've already heard quite a lot about it, goes to the issue of Donald Trump summoning people, being aware they were armed, perhaps really directly soliciting violence on their part. It seems he certainly didn't care if they engaged in violence. He wasn't concerned about it. So those facts developing, I think, further would be significant. But the point I want to stress is that on the question that's really most important, and that's the question of, did Donald Trump personally engage in a very serious way in trying to illegally overturn the election, knowing that there was no fraud involved in it? That evidence is now very powerful without collecting further evidence that I can see. Now, the important thing to know is that the Justice Department has to ultimately make this call. They have to have the witnesses ready to go. They have to have admissible testimony. What we saw in the hearing was not necessarily all what you would call admissible testimony that can be used in court. You'd have to look at it piece by piece. So there's a professional judgment to be made by the Justice Department. But the facts that have come out across the board showing Donald Trump's involvement and overriding, time and again, overriding the objections, the resistance, the opposition of his own people to every different thing that he did, that's a very, very powerful evidence that he engaged in criminal acts to overturn the election. And our view is clearly needs to be prosecuted in order to deter that conduct in the future.